This program contains true stories of rescues. All of the 911 calls you will hear are real. Whenever possible, the actual people involved have helped us reconstruct the events as they happened. In emergency centers around the country, each call means someone's in trouble. And each response can send rescue workers to the scene of unknown danger. I'm William Shatner. Tonight, true stories of quick thinking and real courage on Rescue 911. We begin on September 21st, 1989, as the worst U.S. storm ever recorded, Hurricane Hugo, neared the South Carolina coast. Its brutal winds and rain threatening everything and everyone in its path.
I've never worried about hurricanes before, but something about Hugo seemed to be different. The animals were acting strange, and I noticed that I couldn't breathe. I asked my family to come home and start tying down everything, and people were teasing me, telling me I'm just, hurricanes don't hit Charleston. We'll always be prepared for nothing.
Family and friends gathered at the home of Lorraine A.U. to wait out the storm together. Lorraine was keeping a close watch on her 80-year-old invalid Aunt Lillian.
I kept asking my husband over and over if my aunt's room was safe enough, if everything in the house was safe enough, because I had this bad feeling that something bad was going to happen.
9 o'clock. The winds were so bad that I was afraid that tornadoes were going to start spitting out from the hurricane. So I told my husband, let's go upstairs and get the kids.
Lorraine's daughter, Deborah Hayes, and her husband, Robert, went to their kids' bedroom.
My wife became very insistent about bringing the children downstairs. She had felt that the upstairs was dangerous, and I didn't think it was necessary. The kids were extremely tired. Preparing for the hurricane had been very stressful and very tiring for all of us.
Neighbor Billy Hudson had also come to Lorraine's house.
We were sitting around with the ladies just trying to break the tension, but you could hear the outside noises and you could feel the house shaking and trembling.
Rain, the leading edge of the rain-producing part of Hugo has already moved on shore. Some of these are capable of producing tornadoes. This is not the worst scenario we're reporting. This is what we're really actually seeing.
Everything just got louder and louder. It was like a train roaring.
All of a sudden, there was a tremendous crash. Everything went black. The roof caved in.
Lorraine's husband, Kenny, grabbed the flashlight.
Came to, it was just nothing around. So I immediately turned toward my wife. Thought she was dead. I thought my wife was dead. I thought my mother was dead. Everything you have, everything you cherish can be taken away in a split second.
My husband started working with the flashlight and the lantern. I saw the rain coming in, felt the wind. I felt like I just wanted to get out of the house because I had this feeling the whole house was going to collapse.
I looked back at Lillian's room, and it looked like someone brought a big dump truck in and just dumped a load of wood debris on top of her bed.
I saw her covered, totally buried in all this debris, and that's when I really panicked. I ran out of my side of the house into my daughter's side, screaming, Aunt Lillian is dead. My God, she's dead. After all these months of taking care of her and keeping her alive, the Hurricane Hugo is taking her from me.
I figured she was dead, but I had to find out, and even if she was dead, I was going to bring her back in there. We just couldn't leave her piled up in that stuff.
I know I was scared. I was panicked, and I was terrified. But I had to do something to take care of my aunt. I had to get on the phone and call EMS.
Lorraine's call for help came shortly before midnight.
North Charleston 911, operator 1.
Yes, ma'am. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. My house just caved in a minute. Kenny, no! I'm sorry. My house has just caved in. The tower fell on it.
Hold on, I got an EMT for you.
Robert Maxwell took over the call.
Ma'am?
My house just caved in. My aunt is a critically ill patient. She's dying right now because she's gotten hit by so much debris.
Okay.
I've been hit in the head. My kids are hit. Everybody is all messed up.
How many people do you have there with you?
My husband, my daughter, and I got 3 children, and me and my...
How's your husband?
My husband is okay right at the moment. I can't even find my husband.
Okay.
I got in there finally, and I saw my father-in-law working very hard pulling the rubble off of her. I rushed up and I started pulling the rubble off also. It must have been about 3 feet from the top of her bed, which was a very terrifying sight, you know, to think that there's a human being underneath this stuff.
I felt like I better dig fast because the top of the room was gone. Robert and myself both kept thinking we were picking up pieces of metal and throwing them off, and we couldn't figure out where the metal had come from.
Nobody told us to evacuate this area. We're really safe over here.
I understand.
We were here to protect her and to serve her, and we couldn't get to her. I felt real bad because I was put in a situation that the most I could do was talk on the phone.
The hurricane was so dangerous, no rescue workers were allowed to go out.
I am scared to death.
When we continue...
I didn't think we were going to make it through this. The children asked me, Mommy, are we going to die?
When the roof of Lorraine Ayoub's house caved in, her invalid Aunt Lillian was buried in the rubble. But with power down all over Charleston and Hurricane Hugo's tremendous winds relentlessly pounding the city, rescue workers were not even allowed to go out. They could do nothing to help.
My father-in-law, he dug sort of a tunnel so he could reach down and check her vitals, and he was touching her neck.
Her eyes were blinking. It was a fairly rapid pulse. I just hollered at Robert. I said, Robert, she's alive. Let's get her out. She's alive.
What is your aunt's condition? How is she right now?
Critical right now.
Okay.
I don't know if she's going to make it. No, sir, she's not conscious.
All right.
Aunt Lillian's pre-existing illness meant that she could not survive more than a few hours without extra oxygen.
Her room is falling in, is what she's saying. The stuff is falling in on her.
We took her out already. Her room fell. I thought she was dead.
Is she sitting up in bed?
No, she can't sit up. She has to lay flat.
Lay flat. Good. Okay,
right.
That's what we want her to do. We also want to keep her still. We don't want to try to hurt her no more than we have to.
Okay, I'm trying.
Okay.
She's scared too, I think.
Is she conscious now?
I think she is. No, I don't know. Her eyes are in the back of her head right now. Well, I can't tell.
All right.
This was a nightmare. I just knew that her aunt needed emergency medical treatment right then.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the best advice I can. Is she breathing?
Is that Lillian breathing? Yes, she's breathing.
Okay. All right.
Oh, my God. All the winds in my house. I don't have a ceiling.
Okay. Well, what I want you to do is get somebody to find the oxygen tank, and we're going to put her on some oxygen.
Okay.
Do you have somebody there that can go find the tank for you?
Yeah, wait a minute.
My husband and my son-in-law were going through all the stuff trying to find oxygen. The EMS guy kept me on the phone. He kept saying, just be calm. It felt good to talk to him because he had a lot of confidence in what he was saying, which made me feel more confident.
We're practically outside.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have somebody there just as soon as we can, okay?
Okay. I'm so nervous.
You're doing good. You're doing real good. I'm going to talk you all through it, okay?
Okay.
All right.
My husband's got the oxygen out.
Okay. What I need him to do is hook it up. What is her recommended dose?
She's using around 2 or 3 liters.
2 or 3 liters?
Right.
All right. Go ahead and put her on 4 liters, okay?
Put her on 4 liters.
But the oxygen tank would not work.
They're trying to get somebody over here, but they can't do it because it's so bad out there. My mouth is dry. I can't even talk.
I understand. Just need to be calm, all right?
Okay. What's going to happen with my house? What are we going to do?
I don't know. We'll worry about that later, okay?
I'm worried about my babies, and I'm bleeding myself, but I can't do anything about it.
Okay.
But I can't worry about me right now. I got to worry about my family.
Well, we're going.
I looked at Billy Hudson's head, and he was bleeding all over the place, so I checked him out. And in his head, he had a pretty good-sized piece of plaster just sort of lodged in the side of his head. After I had finished with Billy Hudson and my father-in-law had finished with Aunt Lillian, we both proceeded to go upstairs and investigate the damage. At the time, we still didn't realize what had hit us.
Robin and myself were both amazed. We just saw a big hole at the top of the stairs where the upstairs used to be. When I got up the stairs, I saw just pieces of metal everywhere. Still couldn't figure out how did they build a house with large pieces of metal in it. When I looked out across the street, I saw the tower. It just looked like someone had built a roller coaster in my front yard. We were at the top of the roller coaster. The street was at the bottom, and Billy's house across the street was the other hill of the roller coaster. It had just fallen that way.
The wall to the kids' room was pushed back. There was a large metal pipe in Ricky's bed. There was a large light fixture in Michael's bed. If the kids had been in there, they wouldn't have made it.
It's really chaotic, and I'm sorry. I just can't help it.
You're doing good.
Okay.
Just need to stay calm. Doing real good. All right?
Okay.
Okay.
What hit us, Kenny? What hit us? The tower hit us? My God, the highway department tower is what hit us.
Hugo's tremendous winds had blown a nearly 300-foot radio tower down onto the house, crushing the roof in and leaving them exposed to the storm.
I thought it looked very grim. Just from what she was giving me on the phone, I didn't know if she could wait.
Okay. In a couple of minutes, it's getting ready to get real calm. Okay? You know where Helm Avenue is?
I knew from the information that was coming in that I was getting ready to pass over Charleston.
In the car. Aunt Lillian, everybody, go to the Helm Avenue EMS station. You know where that is?
Yes.
He told me that as soon as the calm came over, for all of us to evacuate.
After the eye passes and it gets calm, and then the next storm that comes up, is it going to be as bad as it is now?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
You should have enough time to get from your house to Helm Avenue.
Okay. I'll try.
That is a safe place, and y'all don't need to be in that house.
Okay.
We'll call them and tell them that you're going to be coming.
Okay.
Y'all just be careful, okay? All right?
Thank you for talking me through this.
All right, man.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I didn't think we were going to make it through this. My children asked me, Mommy, are we going to die? I said, well, whatever it was, we're still alive. Maybe the good Lord's going to let us go the rest of the way. And the whole time I wasn't sure because the walls were rattling. Everything was moving. I mean, the house was really moving. And all I could do was say, please let us get through this.
As the eye of the hurricane approached, the winds gradually died down. But the streets were full of debris.
I climbed through the tower to get my van. The tower just missed my van by 1 inch. It was 1 inch behind my van.
They knew they could not make it to the EMS station during the brief eye of the hurricane. So they decided to go instead to Kenny's mother's house, a block away. But there were too many people to take in one trip.
As they were leaving, I realized that 2 of our friends came inland and stayed in the apartment behind Billy's house, and that was right underneath the tower.
Kenny went to check on his friends. Robert returned for Kenny and Aunt Lillian.
I came back for the second trip, and just as Kenny was getting into the van, the wind really started picking up violently.
From what EMS told us and all past experience of hurricanes, backside hurricane is the strongest because it's that sudden force of wind that comes back and it's going in the opposite direction. The worst was yet to come.
Even as we left and got around the corner to Miss Harris's house. When I got inside and I saw all the cracks in the roof, I said, oh my God, this would cave in next.
The backside of the hurricane hit, and still the Ayub family had not shown up at the EMS station. The rescue workers were worried.
When the call came in reference to a tower falling on the house, it was just frustrating that you wanted to help somebody, but you couldn't even get out of the building. We were told kind of to stay around and wait till the official word came to go out. But the longer we sat around, the more frustrated we got.
Several hours later, when the winds began to die down, paramedics Jimmy Wagstaff and Bob Shoemake finally got permission to go look for the Ayub family and Aunt Lillian.
We didn't have an address. All we knew was the road, but we figured it wouldn't be hard to find a tower laying across the house.
We met with another crew who was going down to the scene to see if they can find the house.
Both staff cars ended up at the house at about the same time. We noticed the tower laying across several houses. Since me and Bob Shoemate were the only ones with protective gear, we searched the houses. The other two paramedics that were there stayed outside in case we got trapped, they could send for help.
As we made our way up the steps started to groan and give way. All the time we were in there, we kept hoping that nothing would happen, we wouldn't get caught in there. We couldn't find anybody in the house. We checked the surrounding houses and talked to some neighbors who had told us that the woman was taken out by some other people, and they didn't know where they had taken her.
The storm started lightening up. As it eased up more, we kept noticing car lights going by the large picture window at my mom's house. And I said, well, let's see what's out there, because we're going to have to get Lillian to the hospital. She can't keep going like this.
All of a sudden, the man come running out of a house with a flashlight. In the back of our mind, we were thinking, this is probably the old lady we're searching for.
Right away. Please come. Coming right now.
We didn't do our normal procedures because we didn't have any equipment to work with. We scooped her up and put her in the back of the car and made our way toward Navy Hospital.
I was never so happy to see anyone in my whole life as I was to see those two guys from EMS. And I started to cry because that was the first sight of help we had.
They came in without hesitation, and they picked her up, and they knew what to do, and they were so gentle with her and so kind.
The two paramedics drove Aunt Lillian to the nearest hospital. Even before dawn, help began arriving for the devastated city of Charleston.
At daylight, we all went outside, and it was like another world. It was not our home after, living here all our lives. That wasn't our home. This wasn't our street. It looked like a war zone. We went back to look at our house, and we saw this tower just on the house, through the children's bedroom, through my Aunt Lillian's room. To me, the shock was knowing that that was my kids' room, and knowing that, thank God they weren't there, because it was right through their beds.
It was a tremendous shock. I'd have to say that I got really depressed, but I'm grateful that I have such a wonderful family that I depend on, and that they depend on me, because it gives me purpose.
3 buildings were damaged by the tower. Neighbor Billy Hudson's house across the street was also crushed. But the Ayub family has refused to give up. Demolition has already begun to make way for a new house.
We're going to rebuild that house back, and we're going to go back to that house, and we're going to pick up where we were before the hurricane.
It picks up every day. Things get a little better. And in fact, right after the hurricane, I was telling people, yeah, it's getting a nickel better a day. And I'd say right now we're up to maybe $1 better a day.
2.5 weeks later, Aunt Lillian was released from the hospital and returned home.
My Aunt Lillian just about raised me. I'm happy to take care of her because I love her. I'm all that she has, and I don't mind the responsibility at all. We lost everything. We lost our home, our clothes, everything that we own, we've lost. But we didn't lose each other. We're all grateful to just be alive, no matter what else has happened. And I think we've gotten even closer since Hurricane Hugo.